So as you can already tell, this YouTube video is going to be a little bit different. We've got a pile of clean. We've got a pile of clean laundry to fold, and we've got some cats on the bed and an unmade bed. And here's my setup. So what is going on? We've got clearly a different plan today. It's a Sunday, and I don't usually film on Sundays. I'm going to be folding my laundry. And this is because the topic of today's video is one that I wanted to do in a really natural setting. It is all about motherhood and work-life balance and what it's like to be a performing artist, content creator, etc., and be raising 2 kids. So why this video? Especially since I don't usually talk about my children, I don't usually talk about my family. I keep it like super pro, right? Very professional, talking about business and mindset and all the rest. Well, I'm not doing a good job of folding this, multitasking, and that is definitely part of what this video is going to be all about. So we'll see how well the laundry goes. But what happened is that I have this program, the Profitable Performer Revolution. I've talked about it before. If this is not your first time watching me, you probably have heard of it. And inside that program are a lot of wonderful young performing artists. And one of them recently said that, it was in our community Facebook group, and then again on one of our coaching calls. And she basically said that she was so, I'm going to actually look it up. So basically, she was worried she'd never be able to balance the needs of daily life with the needs of her business as a performing artist. Okay, a lot of us feel that way, right? So that's where we're starting. But from there, she made another connection, and it was, this meant she'd never be ready to become a mother. And the moment that she said that, another performing artist, another singer, incredible artist chimed in and said, "Me too." And it just got me thinking about how familiar this conversation is and how we don't talk about it enough, and how I needed mentors and models out there that I saw leading successful lives as performing artists who also were mothers. And I don't mean to exclude fathers. I'm sure this is similar for you too. But I needed to see those models in order for me to actually realize that, okay, maybe it's not going to look perfect, but I absolutely can have children if that's what I want. So this is the topic of today's video. And I wanted to do it in this, natural state, because I want to show you, I want to take all the artifice out of it. I don't want to pretend that it's easy, and I don't want to give you the highlight reel. I want you to see, okay, it is what it is, and it's great in its way, and it's hard in its way, and all of that is okay. Are you with me? You ready to go? Let's dive in. Hi, I'm Fiona Flyte, and if you are new here, I am a business coach for performing artists, singers, dancers, actors, musicians. I've got a Facebook community, and I'm present on Instagram and all the socials. This video today is a little bit different than usual, so check out the other ones as well. So let's start with what I thought needed to happen before I could have kids. And so at this point, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I had met the man that was going to become my husband. And to be perfectly honest with you, I was not the kind of child or young girl who thought much about marriage or children. It just wasn't really something that I thought a lot about. And when I did, I wasn't really positive. I didn't necessarily think it was something that I wanted to do. But once I met my husband and I understood how important having kids was to him, I started thinking about it differently. And I'm not going to deny that at 30, my biological clock started ticking. Honestly, there is that biological thing that happens. And so at that point, I started saying to myself, well, what is it that needs to happen in order for me to feel like I can have kids? And it was a whole bunch of BS, honestly. It was all about success. But if you are a performing artist, particularly an independent one, then you know that, like, what is success? It's so ephemeral. At this point in my career, I was part of I was a resident artist with an opera company. I had my own private voice studio. I sang at conventions. I had a concert business. I was making money as both my two primary income streams, the voice coach and the concert performer, opera singer, etc. And so, I was a successful working actor, singer, but I didn't feel successful. And I didn't think that I could give up the time required to be a mom. I didn't think I could still go to rehearsals. I thought I would be giving up so much. And I certainly didn't have the budget for a nanny. But even with that kind of budget, I just had this belief that I had to have reached some sort of external success in order to be allowed to have kids, in order for it to make sense. I don't even know. I mean, looking at it now, it's very convoluted, but I imagine for you, this may be super present. And the truth is that, do you? Do you need any of that? What is it even that you need? Are you clear what you think success is, or what you think this thing is that would make you ready to be able to do this thing? And then, going back to what was said in my group about the work-life balance, who's got that? I mean, honestly, who has it? When I think about all of these online, coaches telling me how easy it is to balance work and motherhood and content creation and all the rest, I think it's a bunch of bull. I think they're just showing us the highlight reel. I don't think it's real. I think that it is, or my experience is that it's a constant negotiation with your kids and with your husband. It's a constant figuring it out and an evolving process. And the thing is that that's life, and that is okay. All right. So what was it that happened that made me finally think, okay, yes, I can do this. I can have a child. I wasn't ready to commit to more than one, but I was like, okay, I can have one child. And basically, there were two things. One was what I already mentioned, seeing performing artists model, these were women, model that they could in fact have huge careers and also be mothers. And the other one was a really important question that I started asking myself. So let's start with the models, because this was at a time when really there were not that many models. Nowadays, I think that you can find a lot of successful, especially because they've got the money and all of that, a lot of successful actors and performers who talk about having kids even on their own. But at this time, there weren't so many. And there was still this sort of culture, especially in the opera world, where you got the message that you couldn't have kids or possibly even be married, that if you wanted to go on tour, if you wanted to get cast, you were even advised not to wear your wedding ring to an audition. So that was the time that we're talking about. And what happened was that I came across two people. The first one was one of my just biggest inspirations, and that is Audra McDonald. And I don't know, I don't remember exactly what it was, whether I heard her talking about it at a concert, or because I remember distinctly after I had kids, her talking at a concert that I attended about her children, or I think at that point it was one child. But I read about it or something. At any rate, I discovered, because this was also pre-big social media, that Audra McDonald happily had a child and was still Audra McDonald, performing incredibly all over, right? And so that was sort of the first wake-up call of like, well, wait, if Audra McDonald can have a child, well, okay, she's super successful. It doesn't mean that you can't be successful and have children. Okay. And then after that, I read a book by Renee Fleming. It was her autobiography, and I'll look up the name for you. So it was called The Inner Voice, The Making of a Singer. And in this book, Renee Fleming goes into detail about being a mother and an opera singer. And it was so freeing, so liberating to be exposed to someone at that height of success talking about being a mom. And it was like light bulb went off for me. Okay, it is possible. Maybe it's not easy and maybe I don't have the resources that these people have, but it is absolutely possible. I don't have to keep pretending like I can't possibly do it. So then the second thing that happened was this question that I started to ask myself. And the question was, what am I waiting for? So I'll say that again. What am I waiting for? What are you waiting for? And this goes back to that definition of success. It was like, what level of quote unquote success do I need to achieve? Because I'm also waiting for that achievement. I'm waiting to achieve that success. You hear me talk a lot about this whole thing of waiting for the permission to, to put yourself out there as a performer. You have to wait to get cast. You have to wait to be signed by a label. And I already then was so realizing what a trap that was and how it wasn't working for me. It didn't look like I was going to have that Star is Born experience. By this point, I'm in my 30s. And it's like, what am I waiting for? If I'm waiting for somebody to discover me, and then what? I cannot continue to wait in order to start a family, because what am I waiting for? And will that thing that I'm waiting for actually happen? So I'm really making this video for these two incredible artists inside my program. And I thought, when they asked, I was like, oh, I'll create some content. I'll create a post. We'll chat about it inside of our community. But then I thought, this is a big issue. And I really remember what this decision was like for me. And so instead, I thought this format. And if I had been doing it in my group, I would have come up with journal prompts that were specifically for them. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to share these journal prompts with you, because this is really how you can change your life, is actually having the self-awareness to ask yourself questions and dig in, allow your intuition, your gut source to move through you, your guides, however you look at it. Look for that authentic truth that lives inside you when you journal. So I would like for you to either stop and start this video, or to watch the whole thing and then look at the journal prompts that I am including in the description. They'll be at the top of the description. Take each one and then journal it out. Now, I know as different learning styles like to do this kind of self-awareness work in different ways. This is something else that I cover a lot inside of Profitable Performer Revolution, because our productivity, and also with my private clients, your productivity doesn't have to look like everyone else's. So for me, I love to journal. That's great. But for you, especially if you're more of an extroverted type, you may actually benefit from speaking aloud your journaling. So it's just not pen to paper. You can speak it into your phone as you're going on a walk, or you can even talk it out with your friends. But the issue is to take these journal questions or these journal prompts, take them very seriously if this subject of when, how, if to have children matters to you. Take these journal prompts seriously and you may have a huge breakthrough. So let's dive in. I'm going to give you the prompts and I'm going to give you some of my own spins on them. And I hope that they're really helpful. So the first one is kind of a doozy, and we have to start there. The first one is, are you sure you actually want to have children? Because it is okay if you do not. Maybe you're having these things come up because of your biological clock, but you don't actually really want them if you're totally honest with yourself. Maybe you're getting pressure from external forces. I have got an incredibly close friend who is now, I think, 50 and didn't have kids, is very, very happy not having chosen not to have kids. My singing teacher, the one that started me on all of my personal development and spiritual growth journeying, also chose never to have kids. And she would talk about herself as a rainbow mother because she had so many incredible students and she gave all of herself to these students. And that was her way of putting motherhood out into the world. She didn't need her own kids. So ask yourself that first and take it seriously. Even if you think for sure you want kids, and whatever you decide, it's okay, right? Even if you're really sure you want kids, ask yourself, do I want kids? And allow yourself to answer, okay? So the second question, you've determined that you do want to have kids. Now, if you don't want to have kids, great, you don't have to do the rest of these questions. Let's say, yes, you've answered question 1, you do want to have kids. The next question is the one that I was asking myself. What are you waiting for? And be so very honest with yourself. What are you waiting for? Then number 3 is, if you are waiting for some specific kind of success, what exactly does that success look like? What do you feel like you have to achieve in order to be ready, in order for this to be, the choice that you can make for yourself? What does that success look like? And if it's something else that you're waiting for, well, be specific. When will you know that you achieved it, right? Will you? Is it an out there kind of thing that you have no control over? Or can you be honest with yourself? Okay, this is what I need to accomplish in order to feel ready to have kids. And, I hate to break it to you, but you're never going to be ready. You just aren't. Nobody is ever ready to have kids. You just do it when you do it. All right, this one is a tough one. I had my kids late, and that's fine. But the question is, how old do you want to be when you have your kids? Because I don't think I really thought about how I would have less energy, how, what the impact of having kids later would be. I would not do anything differently. I'm just saying I didn't really do an analysis of it, which is fine. But I think it's a really great thing to ask yourself. There are pros and cons to having kids younger or older. When you are older, you are so much more confident and clear about who you are. And in a lot of ways, that makes you a better parent. But when you're younger, it means that you have got a lot more vitality. You're closer in age to the kids, so you just remember more of what it's like. There are benefits to both. And so ask yourself, how old do I want to be? And then also, if you already are a certain age, don't worry about it. There are benefits to both. And I truly believe that everything happens in perfect timing. So whatever age you are when you have your kids, that's the right age. Now, I want to be really clear when we're talking about age, there is no too old, okay? There is no too old to have kids. There is no too old to have your career. And I just want to get that limiting belief out the door. So I understand that I'm talking to you about how old do you want to be when you have kids, but that doesn't mean that there's a too old. Please, not a too old. All right, so the next question is, what do you believe that children need in order to be happy, healthy, well-adjusted children? This goes back to this question of where you have to be in your own life in order to have the children in the first place. So what do you think that they need in order to be happy and well-adjusted? Do they have to have parents who are super successful or have reached certain places in their careers? Or do they have to have children that love them unconditionally? I think you know my answer, but answer this for yourself. All right, this is another really important question just to kind of set your expectations for what's going to be required. And I don't think I thought about this enough. I don't even think I thought about it at all. It just sort of happened and was just an outcurrent of who I am as a person. You probably will have the same thing, but maybe if you figure this out earlier, it'll set your expectations a little bit more. And this question is, what parenting style do you plan to use? So the thing is that there are a lot of different parenting styles, and you'll probably find that you fall more into one category or another. And, some of the demarcations are, will you sleep train so that your baby goes, sleeps through the night sooner and you sleep separately? Or will you co-sleep so that you and baby are in bed together? There's lots of things like that. And I'm not going to get into anything about one way or another way being right or wrong. I don't believe in that. I believe that you get to make the choices that are in alignment with who you are. Now, in my case, I went with what is called attachment parenting. And So attachment parenting is basically where the baby is attached to you all the time. So what that looks like is, and that's not what they mean. What they mean is that, this bond is forming, this, really strong attached bond, which theoretically makes the child feel more independent later because they felt so secure when they were infants. But what it looks like is that they literally are attached to you because you're walking around and they're on your back on the backpack sling, or they're in the sling, as little tiny babies that's attached to your body. They sleep on you. Now, if you're going to go with attachment parenting like I did, then you got to set your expectations for how much of the time you can be away from your baby, which for me was not a lot at all. And it meant that I did crazy things like drive several hours from Los Angeles. I don't know, several hours. It felt like several hours. It was probably an hour from Los Angeles to Orange County for a Christmas caroling gig with a, not an infant, but she was just like 5 months old or something, with my husband. So we have to drive there so I can nurse her before I put on my costume, do the gig. I probably nursed her in between sets and do the gig and finish the gig and then nurse her again, and then all drive home together. I mean, talk about a trooper husband too. But if you're going to be doing attachment parenting, then your child is going to be going to rehearsals and auditions. And I mean, bless their heart, my dad, that I went to an audition for Wicked that was like a cattle call, and I brought the stroller and my dad. We spent the whole day at this audition. I've got so many great stories like this. And looking back on it now, I wouldn't change a thing because how sweet, what great memories. But at the time, it was rough. I'm not going to lie, it was rough. So if you have clarity about your parenting style, then you'll at least be able to set your expectations. I'm not going to say what parenting style you should choose. It's just possibly useful to research them in advance and kind of know, all right, this is what's going to be required. So tying right back into what I was talking about with my husband and my dad, the next question is, do you have support? Because that is really going to impact things as well. As far as I'm concerned, rather than waiting for some perfect work-life balance, having family support or any kind of community type support for raising your child is going to make a huge impact on your ability to continue showing up for yourself as an artist while also showing up the way you want to for your child. And I am so sorry about the next one. It's just got to be said. What are you willing to give up? Because I say this a lot, we can do everything, but we can't do it all at the same time. And if I'm being brutally honest, I will say that there were times when my children were younger where I just felt so, I don't know what the right word is, guilty, depressed, and all from this idea that I was not successful because I wasn't, moving and grooving in my career. And I just felt like I wasn't hitting any of my goals. But when I took a step back and I really analyzed my priorities and I asked myself, what do you really care about? I realized that my number one priority was my kids. And that if I actually was looking at my life from my priorities, then I was incredibly successful because I was living this, I was doing motherhood the way that really was in the most alignment with me. And that was great, but it would have been greater if if I hadn't had so much conflict, if I'd understood, okay, I'm going to be giving up a certain amount of energy that would have gone towards my career as a singer. I'm going to be giving some of that up in order to prioritize my kids because my kids are my number one priority. And so I ask you, what are you willing to give up? How important are the kids to you? And I personally think, this all goes back to the what are you waiting for? If you're waiting for some, magic moment where all the stars are aligning, it's not going to happen. And having the kids, ultimately, if it's what you want, is so incredibly rewarding. So So what are your values and priorities? I think that it would have been easier for me if I had done this work that I'm encouraging you to do now, if I had done it before, because then I would have understood, okay, I'm going to have, let's say 3 years, let's say 5 years, let's say 1 year. I'm going to have that period of time where the children are going to be the number one priority. I'm still going to perform. I'm still going to do these crazy things where I take, my kids on to all the rehearsals and I'm bouncing them while I'm singing in a rehearsal or passing them to other mothers in the cast. I'm going to do those crazy things, but it's not going to be like I don't have kids. And that's okay for this period of time. I think I would have had less pain if I had taken the time to just kind of assess. Again, we can do everything, but not necessarily all at the same time. And when you see these people talking on Instagram about how, their life is so set up for them with their child and they're still running this incredible business, it behind the scenes is a mess. All right. Just take it from me. It's a mess. And if it's not a mess, then I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, because I think even the ones with a whole lot of money and resources, it's still challenging behind the scenes. But in no way am I saying that you need to give up your performing or your business in order to have kids. Absolutely not. Because I want to ask you this question. Do you think modeling is important? Do you think that kids need role models who are living fully realized lives? Because I sure do. And so one of the things that has kept me sane throughout my mothering journey is reminding myself that every time I choose me, every time I choose my singing, my art, my kids are also seeing that. They're seeing that I haven't given up my life in order to be a mother. They're seeing that I have my own passions and my own convictions and my own life. And I think that that is also incredibly important. And so just kind of mull that over for yourself too. It's like, is giving everything up to have kids the answer? Because I don't think so. I think that modeling who you want, modeling what you want for your kids, modeling that fully rich, meaningful life is also incredibly important. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And I haven't been reminding you to let me know in the comments, but obviously, like, this video is so personal. I would love to hear what you have to say here and on YouTube, but also on Instagram. DM me. I'd love to have conversations about this with you, and I'd love to follow this video up with more if you would like more. So clearly there are trade-offs when we're talking about becoming a parent. And so what I want to ask you is, how important is it to you to become a parent? Like, really, how important is it to you? This goes back to some of those earlier questions, and by now you probably are getting pretty clear if you are in fact doing these journal prompts. But how important is it to you? And now lastly, we're going to go really deep. And this is actually a legitimate question that I ask my clients frequently, especially at sort of specific parts of our time working together. And that is, what is the meaning of life? And I mean this legitimately. I'm truly asking you what you believe the meaning of life is. And that's ultimately the meaning of life for you. What is the meaning of your life? Is it to reach some sort of specific success in order to prove something to somebody else or to fill some void inside you? Because if so, I'm afraid that you're never going to fill it, because that's not the way to do it. For me, the meaning of life is truly evolution, expansion, growth, personal development, spiritual journeying. It's becoming the most fully actualized version of myself that I possibly can. That is the meaning of life. And I don't know anything. I don't know anything that challenges and creates more growth in a person's life than becoming a parent. I don't know anything that does, on so many levels. So clearly, I'm not sugarcoating any of this, right? If you thought that work-life balance was tough before kids, it's just a whole new level after kids. And you know what else? It's worth it. I truly hope that you found this video useful. And if you did, definitely let me know here in the comments and DM me on Instagram. I just really wanted to get real with you today because, this is not something that I talk about a lot. I do tend to keep my work life separate to some degree, although my children are always there behind the scenes. And so I hope that this was useful to you. And if you want more of this really candid talk, then definitely let me know here in the comments. Message me on Instagram or Facebook to let me know, because this clearly is very different from my usual videos, and I'd love your feedback. Now, as always, go out into the world and